Good evening, everyone. It is 7:01. We will call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Rockwood Board of Education meeting. We would like to thank the administrative team and all the staff and students at Rockwood Summit High School for being gracious hosts for our meeting this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the district, hear reports about our progress, and listen to the community on issues related to tonight's agenda. We want to remind all of our visitors that we expect the audience to remain civil and respectful at all times as the board conducts its business. Opinions expressed at the meeting are not necessarily the opinions of the Rockwood School District. We appreciate your cooperation and that you took the time to attend tonight's meeting. Could I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes. Next, could I have a motion to approve Board of Education meeting minutes for December 19th, 2023? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That also passes. We do not have any patron comments this evening, so we will move right over to superintendent and board comments, and I will turn it over to Dr. Curtis King.
Thank you, President Bays. To start off, I would like to provide our community with a brief introduction to ClassLink. This is a new identity and access management system that is in our consent agenda packet this evening. ClassLink will provide parents, students, and staff members with unique single sign-on dashboards to allow easier access to online resources, making signing into these resources easier due to the SSO feature saving user credentials after the initial sign-in. ClassLink will replace some of the existing products that we use for account management and web resource usage analytics. It will be phased in over the next 6 months, and it will be fully utilized for the 2024-25 school year. We will be sharing more information about ClassLink with our district community in the coming months. Earlier this evening, the Board of Education approved the hiring of Dr. Kimberly Cohen as our new Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and Natasha Fisher as new Assistant Principal at Lafayette High School. Both of these positions will begin effective July 1st. Kim is currently, or will be replacing Dr. Katie Rebele, and Natasha replaces Dr. Tim Jones. Both are retiring at the end of the school year. Kim is currently Executive Director of Human Resources in the Parkway School District, a position she has held since 2020. Prior to that, she served as the principal of McKelvey Elementary School in the Parkway School District for 10 years. She earned the St. Louis Distinguished Principal of the Year from the Missouri Association of Elementary School Principals in 2017. And after having been assistant principal there for 2 years. Kim previously worked in the Rockwood School District from 2000 through 2008, 3 years as a lead counselor at Wildwood Middle School, and 5 as an elementary school teacher at Pond and at Westridge. She earned a Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education from Missouri State University, a Master's in Education from Southwest Baptist University, a Master's in Educational Counseling from Missouri Baptist University, as well as a Master's in Educational Administration and a Doctorate in Educational Administration from Lindenwood University. Natasha is currently an administrative intern at Kellison Elementary School, a position she has held since 2022. Prior to that, she taught theater arts at Lafayette High School for 14 years. She was named Teacher of the Year at Lafayette High School for 2021-2022 and was also a recipient of the school's Going the Distance Award. She's a proud Marquette High School graduate, and Natasha earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Performing Arts and a Master's of Arts in Teaching in Theater Education from Fontbonne University. She earned an Educational Specialist in Educational Leadership from Lindenwood University and she is currently working on her doctorate in educational leadership through Maryville University. Please join us in welcoming Kim back to Rockwood in a new administrative role for Natasha in her new role at Lafayette High School. Let's give them a round of applause. The FAFSA free application for federal student aid for 2024-25 is now available. FAFSA is a form completed by prospective and current college students to determine eligibility for student financial aid. Families and students are encouraged to complete the free online application in January, as Missouri has a priority filing date that is, the deadline itself is actually Thursday, February 1st. Families and students can apply online at studentaid.gov and find more useful information and resources on our district website, rsdmo.org. Rockwood is now accepting nominations for the Rose Award. The Rose Award stands for Rockwood Outstanding Service in Education, and it is awarded to 15 deserving individuals each year. These recipients may be teachers, administrators, support staff members, parents, volunteers, and/or community members. It is now in its 35th year. The Rose Award program has honored more than 500 staff and community members since its inception. Nominations will be accepted online through Thursday, January 25th. For more information and to submit a nomination, please visit the Rose Awards website at rsd.mo/rose. And one last item for consideration and for conversation, I think worthy of comment. And it's the response of our staff, of our community, our teachers, all staff in two buildings specifically this week. As you know, it has not been the warmest week as relates to weather across this region. And we've had issues as a result. At Baldwin Elementary School and at Eureka Elementary School, we have had some pretty noteworthy impact in those respective buildings. Our teachers, countless support staff, administrators, we truly are showing what it means to be an educational community because we're coming together. Folks are figuring out what is needed, but most importantly, they're looking out for each other and the best interests of students. And so it'd be easy to skip over this, but I think it's really noteworthy how much staff have really poured in to make sure we are able to do what we do best, which is serving the needs of all students in the Rockwood School District. So thanks to everyone for their efforts in front of the screen and kind of behind the screen as well in terms of making sure we are ready to roll to meet the needs of students. President Bays, that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. Any board comments this evening?
Well, I'll make a comment here on Dr. Kane's comment about the FAFSA to everybody. I was personally involved with filling it out this year. And I can tell you that for those of you who filled out the form in previous years, which I had also done, this is a much simpler form. It takes far less time to do it. And so it actually was quite a relief to get through it. I know it had a rough launch. Its first weekend, it was down quite a bit, but it does seem to be up now and up most of the time. So I would encourage everybody to fill out that form because you never know. Anything you can get always helps your kids out. Thank you.
Any other board comments? All right, then could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have one comment for the board, public gifts. I would like to acknowledge that Baldwin PTO had donated a monetary donation to assist with the purchase of books for their 3-school book, for one book, one school, in which students receive a book and participate in a book club. And that's quite amazing that they're encouraging kids to read by just simply giving them a book. And then there was an anonymous at Crestview Middle School, a monetary donation, and that was to assist with payment of negative lunch accounts. So thank you to the public for supporting our schools.
President Bays, I will not be, I will abstain from 7.1.
And I'm going to abstain from 7.24. All right. So that motion is to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the abstention from 7.24 for me and 7.10 for Vice President Mignette. Thank you. All right, moving on. Our next item, we would like to invite Matthew Berry up to the stage. Could I have a motion to approve that the Board of Education proclaims February 5th through 9th, 2024 as National School Counseling Week in the Rockwood School District?
So moved.
Motion and a second, and welcome to you. And whenever you're ready, Vice President Midyat is going to read the proclamation, but you want to do that first? Okay.
This is National School Counseling Week. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential. And whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the education, personal and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive development school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, we, the Rockwood Board of Education, do by here proclaim February 5 through 9, 2024 as National School Counseling Week.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the Board of Education recognizing school counselors and the valuable work they do for students. And they also played such an integral role for the school community. I want to just highlight a few things in terms of how our school counselors do that. This National School Counseling Week this year is focused on students centered and standards based. And our counselors are really focused on that as well. And I asked my counselors a couple of things in terms of how are they really working with the students throughout the building and through their work. One thing you may or may not know, 80% of the school counselor's time is spent on either direct or indirect student services. So that means that they directly are working with students, or the other work they do indirectly has an impact on students. And so we had this first semester, our counselors provided 1,500 classroom lessons to our students and over 600 small group sessions for our students on a variety of different topics. For example, I asked one of our elementary school counselors about that work, and they stated that students from their social growth group expressed more confidence in themselves and more comfort in being true to who they are based on the work that they were able to do. They also talked about students from their social awareness group showed an increase in understanding of empathy for others. And so this is that standards base that we're talking about and the work they're able to do. Also, our counselors also really work closely with families. One of my counselors had said that they worked with the student and family that was experiencing chronic absences. And because of the supports that they put in place, the student is now attending school on a regular basis now. This really speaks to that work that they do on a regular. Additionally, too, this year we have rolled out academic planning, and hopefully you heard something about that. So all of our high school counselors and our middle school counselors are really working hard in ensuring that every student beginning in 8th grade has an individual career and academic plan. And I got to witness firsthand what this really looks like at the high school level. Went to many of the 9th grade and 10th grade classes, saw our high school counselors presenting and sharing information about the importance of students really having a plan for school. I'm going to take Shelley Willot's saying that she says all the time, we want students to be able to have opportunity to explore what they want to do. And Shelley shared this last night. This is the last time they get to explore without it before it starts costing them a little bit, right? I love that. And so we're trying to educate our families about that too. And I really appreciate Shelley and all the work that the curriculum department has done to really make sure that we have a really great development of what this academic plan looks like. One of my 8th grade counselors shared that it's been a pleasure to be able to really begin to have lessons that were regarding lessons around the 8th grade credit simulation. We had some 8th grade counselors that were doing 8th grade credit simulation where it helped students understand the importance of earning credits in high school. And so their first quarter, when they first started their first quarter, they were 8th graders started out as freshmen, and then they had to earn all of their grades, pass everything, and the next quarter they become sophomores. So they got to learn what that looks like. This counselor said she noticed that as the high school counselors began to talk to the middle school students in 8th grade this year, they had a better understanding and clear understanding what that looked like. So our school counselors are doing a great job in collaborating and really making sure that our students have a sense of belonging and connectedness. I want to share one last thing with you. One of the elementary principals had asked a kindergartner if they knew their school counselor, and the student exclaimed, "Yes, he checks with me every day and I love it." Right? And so this is the purpose. The more opportunities that we have to put counselors in front of students and make sure that they're really meeting and working with students 80% of that time, the more impact we're going to see and see that our students are going to be more successful. So just really thank you for your support and your commitment to this department. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is to approve that the Board of Education proclaims February 5th through 9th, 2024 as National School Counseling Week in the Rockwood School District. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next up, we are going to have some information only, the annual review of electioneering guidelines, policy and regulations 0380. We'd like to invite Lisa Stump up to the podium to give us a little education.
Okay, thank you for having me. Good evening. Each year at this time, I am invited to go over the district's requirements relating to election activities and remind the board, employees, and the public and the candidates of their obligations. This April, we will just have a candidate election, so that's what I'm going to focus on this evening. The Rockwood requirements are based on the Missouri statute, specifically 115.646, which states in part that no contribution or expenditure of public funds shall be made directly by any officer, employee, or agent of any political subdivision, including school districts, to advocate, support, or oppose the election of any candidate for public office. There is some exceptions for ballot measures for public officials of press releases and public appearances, but that doesn't apply to the candidate part. The other thing I wanted to point out is that since the legislature amended the statute in 2021, any purposeful violation of the statute is punishable as a Class 4 election offense. So let's talk a little bit about the Rockwood policy. It is policy 0380, which recognizes that the statute prohibits the use of school district funds and thus district resources that are paid for with public funds to advocate, support, or oppose any candidate or ballot measure. The district resources include everything paid for with district money, which are things like the stamps, the paper, copiers, but it also includes district communication channels, which is defined in Regulation 0380 as including newsletters, district and school web pages, telephone systems, marquees, interoffice mail, district notification systems, the email system, and disseminating information through students. Regulation 0380 is much more detailed and designed to provide guidance on what specifically is permitted and what is prohibited, and we will talk about that regulation in just a minute. But the policy itself has two explicit provisions. The first one being that district employees may not engage in political activities, which would be the promotion, advocating, or opposing any candidate, while engaged in the performance of their duties as employees of the district, whether during or outside of regular school hours. And the second part of the policy is that states that nor shall any school property be used for political activities during the hours for which classes are in session. So how do we know if something is advocating or not for a particular candidate? The statute itself does not define it. Determining whether or not a document advocates for a candidate is really a subjective finding. For ballot issues, school districts can use public funds to educate the public about a school district bond issue or tax proposition in a factual or neutral manner. Under the regulation, it's the communications department that determines and produces all district election materials and will review if something is advocational or whether it is factual. The communications department, if they have questions, can work with me and the superintendent if there are some questions there. And then finally, the policy does state also that to avoid any actual or apparent conflict of interest, individual Rockwood Board of Education members must not be involved in determining whether specific material advocates, supports, or opposes a candidate. So the regulation, as I said, has a lot more specific guidelines in it, and it specifically prohibits certain activities, and these activities are prohibited for everyone, candidates, employees, and school board members. You may not distribute political literature to students on school property or use students to courier political materials to adults when the information advocates for a particular candidate. However, campaign materials may be distributed at activities held on school property outside of regular classroom hours when parents and patrons are in attendance, provided, however, that all viewpoints regarding the ballot measure or the candidate for public office must be given the same privilege and the materials must comply with the campaign law. So that would apply in the instances where, for example, you have an open house where after school hours where parents and patrons are in attendance, then candidates are allowed to distribute advocational materials. But the important thing is that all the candidates need to be invited and included in that, and it can't just be for one candidate. And the materials that they are distributing have to have the paid for by requirements that are required in the election law. So the second prohibition in the regulation is that you may not utilize district resources to advocate or oppose a candidate. District resources, again, include district funds and anything that's purchased or paid for with district funds and all district communication channels. And it specifically includes sending advocational emails to and from district email addresses. The third prohibition in Regulation 0380 is that you may not erect or display political signs inside or outside of district facilities on district property that advocate, support, or oppose a candidate, except on election day if a school building is a polling place, because that's specifically governed by election law. So let's talk specifically about employees for a moment. The regulation addresses the involvement of employees in advocational activities and provides that, except as provided in Regulation 0380, district employees should have no role in advocating for candidates while they are engaged in the performance of their duties as employees of the district, whether during or outside of regular school hours. However, individual employees retain their First Amendment right to campaign as individual taxpayers on their own time and using their own resources. Thus, it's only the school district resources and not individual resources that's at issue. The district has put out guidelines for employees on campaign do's and don'ts, which are, if you go to the policy on the website, they're connected to that, and I encourage all the employees to look those over. There's also one for the PTOs, and we'll talk about the PTOs in just a minute. But let's talk about what's specifically permitted in the regulation. What is permitted for employees in the regulation is the wearing of political clothing or buttons, again, except at polling places on election day because there's specific rules on that, and or displaying signs on automobiles if it does not cause an actual disruption to the educational program. The second thing that's permitted for employees is distributing campaign literature, working at polls, telephoning voters, and other activities, so long as the employees engage in such activities outside of working hours and without using district resources. And then employees may, as a part of the district's curriculum, conduct mock elections, lessons or other activities in connection with social studies class, student government, or other curricular or co-curricular classes or activities, so long as the activity is not for the purpose of supporting or opposing a candidate or a ballot issue. Let's talk a little bit about the use of social media. Official district and school social media accounts cannot be used to advocate for or against a candidate. They are district resources. You can do what you want if you have a personal account, you can do what you would like to do as far as your First Amendment rights are concerned. But I do think if you have a social media account, if you're an employee and it does clearly identify you as a Rockwood employee, it would be good to have a disclaimer on there that this statement was made in your individual capacity. Then also during work hours, employees cannot work to promote or defeat a candidate using a personal account or a district resources, including the computers. So again, if you're an employee and you're working, you're on Rockwood time, you shouldn't be promoting or advocating for a candidate, even using your own account while you're working. So let's go back to PTOs for just a minute. For a candidate election, they should not be advocating for a candidate because it can jeopardize the 501c3 status of the PTO. And then I also wanted to just summarize a little bit for the board members what you all can do. Certainly, you can exercise your First Amendment rights as individuals however you would like to. Again, though, the key would be that you cannot use any district resources to advocate for a candidate. So that would include your board member Rockwood email address. So none of that should be used should you choose to support a candidate. But you may do whatever on your own time with your own funds that fits in with your First Amendment rights. So a couple of conclusions. The Rockwood School District property and resources should not be used to advocate for or against candidates. The employees and the board members can do what you would want on your own time, not using any Rockwood resources. And the district will treat all groups and candidates equally. And I would say to anybody, if you have questions, you can address them to the communications department or to Janet, who will probably also get an answer to you. So that's the summary. So there's nothing new from last year. This is just a refresher and a reminder. Does anybody have any questions?
So going back to, it's on slide number 6A. It's about being invited to district events. So let's say Rockwood Summit has a play and it's open to the public. Can candidates appear? I mean, nobody's invited. So what's the status of that?
Correct. If a candidate, I mean, if the patrons and the parents are there, you can attend. I guess what I should say is no one should be prohibited. I think that a lot of times there's communication with all the candidates on certain things.
Wait a minute, like it's an open event to the community.
Right.
So that there would be no issue with a candidate showing up and having some literature or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, as long as it meets the requirements.
Right.
Any
And
other?
again, it's outside of school hours.
Right.
Okay. Because there are questions where, there's events that the parents are at during the school day, but not allowed there.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you all.
All right, our next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 agenda items are all curriculum related. Let's go. So I'm going to first invite Dr. Carrie Skeeters up. My notes say all curriculum, so it's all on your shoulders over there. I'm just kidding. And we're going to take a look. If it's okay with you, I'll read the first motion and then we'll just take them one at a time. And if you want to give us a little intro after the motion's out there, I will give you the green light to do so.
Sounds great.
Okay. Could I have a motion to postpone approval of the secondary science, 6th grade life science and challenge life science, 7th grade earth and space science and challenge earth and space science, 8th grade physical science and challenge physical science courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All right, here we go.
Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here this evening to present to you this curriculum. We are so proud of the work that the teachers have done in developing these products to use with their colleagues and with their students. As President Bays said, my name is Carrie Skeeters. I am in my 6th month here in Rockwood, and I am so excited to be here. I have probably one of the best, if not the best job in the district, and I can claim that because I get to do awesome work with awesome people all the time. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of background about the curriculum development process. I'm going to try to answer some questions that were posed along the way. If I don't get to all of them, please make sure to ask. So first, I'm going to walk through our curriculum development cycle. We start with research. We go back and look at what has been working. Where do we maybe need to make some improvement? We get feedback from the teachers. We get feedback from community, from students, from experts in the area. And we take all that information to make decisions about how do we move our curriculum forward for the next 6 to 8 years to do the very best for our students in this area. After that, we bring teachers in to start the writing process. And at that time, that's when we start really digging into standards, whether we're looking at standards or state standards or national standards. The teachers analyze the standards, unpack them, break them down to try to understand them at their base form. At the end of the process, all standards are included in the curriculum, and it is the role of the curriculum coordinator to ensure that all of the standards that are required by the state of Missouri appear in our curriculum documents and are clear there to be used for our teachers. In addition, we develop curriculum documents, which are composed of content from the Missouri Learning Standards, aligned to feedback that we've received throughout the review process that we did in the initial part of the research cycle. And at that time, we also worked to develop proficiency scales. Proficiency scales are designed to help teachers know what is the most essential learning and to make sure that we help students move to mastery of that content. In addition, there is an area within the proficiency scale that outlines what happens when students hit mastery, then what? So there's an opportunity for students to really go above and beyond that mastery at that advanced level or that 4 level, depending upon how the proficiency scale is structured. And really what we're after is we're after mastery. So we're after the target, that 3. That is usually the state standard or the national standard. We are working to help students achieve that. However, we do not limit what a student can do once they've mastered that standard. And so that's why we provide that advanced level after that. That wording tends to be a little bit broader. It's not as specific as maybe a standard would be in that target area. And the reason for that is because we don't know what students can do when we give them free rein to demonstrate the application and in-depth learning of that standard. So we provide some guidance in that area, but we keep it broader because if we put too many guidelines in, that will limit like sort of a teacher's perspective on what advanced application of that learning could look like. So we developed those proficiency scales out during that time. Those are used to guide instruction and assessment development and to help us really understand if students are achieving mastery of those standards. Let's see, am I missing anything at that level that I wanted to include? I don't think so. Once we get solid documents written, we engage in a feedback loop. We provide opportunities for the public to review the documents, to come in and speak to us about the documents. This year also we had a Google form that went out to the whole community to allow them to provide some feedback on the curriculum documents. In addition, we invite our parent RLC to come in, and they have the opportunity to speak with every curriculum coordinator, ask questions about the curriculum that's going to be brought to you here. And then all throughout the process, teachers who are engaged in the curriculum development go back and they talk with their teachers about what we're writing, get their feedback. Curriculum coordinators reach out to the other teachers in the content area to get their feedback as well. It's really important that we have an ongoing feedback loop throughout that development process. So once that's finished, we come here, you tell us that it looks fantastic, go forward and teach, and then we hit implementation. And so we are in the fall of 24. We hopefully will be implementing all of these new curricular documents in all of these classes. And through that process, we start with professional learning that occurs in the summer. It is facilitated by the curriculum coordinators, and then we do our best to provide ongoing learning throughout the year. That gets tricky, but we're doing the best we can. So that is the implementation, or that is the curriculum review cycle in a nutshell-ish. Nutshell. I forgot that I have this. Okay, so that's the feedback loop. I kind of went through that already. And the board-approved curriculum documents are also available on our website. So next steps, I sort of mentioned this earlier, but we begin implementation. Implementation takes place in the spring and summer. Teachers will start using the curriculum in the fall. Just a couple things. So while we're writing curriculum, we'll see this particularly right now because we have several middle school courses. We have courses that are challenge courses and courses that are really geared to like on grade level. The difference in those courses comes at the implementation level. When we're writing to standards. The standard is the standard. So if we're in 7th grade social studies or in 6th grade science, that standard does not change. It doesn't matter what we're calling the class. So we write to the standard, and then when we go to implementation, that's where we see the difference between a challenge course and a course that is on grade level. That happens through the pacing that occurs in the class, the complexity of the expectations of student work, conversations, to potentially the reading that they're doing, the writing that they're doing, the depth into which they are exploring topics. In addition, some of the difficulty. So we see that more in the teaching and learning that happens and less through the documents. I want to make sure that I went back and identified that. That is supported throughout the implementation process by our coordinators and other instructional specialists, such as the data analysts and our instructional tech specialists. As we move forward with implementation, we monitor the progress of that implementation. So we're constantly looking at student data. We're talking with the teachers to see how the implementation is going. Do we get the pacing right? Does it seem like the standards are presented in the correct order so they actually do build upon each other like we predicted they would when we wrote it? So we continue that feedback loop and make any tweaks we need to along the way. We also engage in ongoing professional learning for our administrators. Certainly we need them to be the instructional leaders, and so providing them with professional learning opportunities in those new curriculum areas is really, really important so they can support their teachers. Do you have any questions for me?
So you said during the implementation cycle, you're doing ongoing, you're building assessment plans. So in that cycle, then are you then looking at some advanced recommendations or targets for kids? Unless students know what their target is, they don't know what to aim for.
Yes. So what they're doing is they're looking at like what are models of what advanced level learning looks like.
Okay.
Really, teachers need to understand sort of what that looks like also, right? But the other essential piece is that Rockwood employs some of the very best educators I have ever seen, and they know what they're looking for when we're talking about how do you take mastery of a standard and extend that learning and apply it in a way that we would never have even talked about in this classroom setting, right? So students are doing some things with that content, with those standards that we did not even predict what was going to be happening. But we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We do look at like what are some model examples of things that students are doing with that learning that gets them to that advanced level, so that they know and we know.
I agree with everything you're saying. I just want to be sure that our students have a target to hit. Because if it's just nebulous that it's more, what is more?
Right.
And so we have to give them something
Right.
to aim for.
Right.
So it sounds like you, when you say these models, it's not tied to a model,
Correct.
but it's in that level of model.
Correct.
Right.
What we don't want to do is we don't want to stifle
Mhm.
what a student might be able to do, and we don't want it to be replicate this thing because that shows that you're advanced. Not really. We want you to take the content. We want you to take the skill that you've mastered and show us what you can do differently with it. That's beyond what we expected in the target at the 3.
It should be going to that higher level of DOK where they're creating
Absolutely.
and evaluating. So
Absolutely.
that it has to move to that level though.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is a goal or a target, is what you're saying, correct? Because I think I picked up on we don't know how well the students can do or how well,
We don't know. We don't want to limit what they can do. So it's not that we don't know, but so the target is a 3. That's the standard. We want students to master the target because that is the expectation. Students also can go beyond that. Once they've mastered that, they can start doing things with that standard that we would not have predicted that they can do. That's what I was trying to get at. So we try to keep the language broader so that we're not hindering, like limiting the thinking about what that could look like.
Carrie, thank you for explaining the process. I just want to emphasize all stakeholders were given the opportunity to have feedback on all these curriculum documents.
In person and through Google Form.
Okay, just out of
Yes.
curiosity, how many outside of the district attended meetings or provided feedback on your Google Forms or anything along that line?
So the public the session that we held, we did not have attendees beyond the team members that were here, and that's not what you were asking. And the Google form did not have responses.
Okay, so I'm reading through this that the public has faith in you and your team of doing a good job at writing your curriculum. My other question, can you just briefly explain what is the process after you adopt this curriculum? What's the process for choosing instructional materials that are going to help you execute this in the classroom?
Thank you. Yes, that's a good question. So that actually happens during the curriculum writing process. So we start looking at resources while we are while we are writing, because it's important for us to say, like, we know our curriculum is going here. What are the resources that are going to best support that, so that we can make sure that the teachers have those in hand when the curriculum is also rolled out at the same time. So we look at a variety of resources that we think are going to best support. Teachers have the option to look at each one of those, to try some of those things out, to see which ones they think are going to be the best fit and will align with the curriculum the best.
Along that line, I noticed one of your other bullet points is ongoing PD for teachers and administrators. And that's when you're rolling out, I mean, the curriculum is one thing. Those resources are another, that they're being used with integrity and fidelity to the resources to support the curriculum, because they are not the curriculum.
Right.
And so I think it's really important that we follow up with that on an ongoing basis to make sure that we're making the best use of the funds that we're spending for resources.
Absolutely. And I think we have a great example of that with our elementary ELA implementation right now. They've been they did implementation professional learning over the summer. They've come back and done some more with that in October. They're going to hit it again in February at our PD day then, and then we'll do a little bit more in the summer again. So
like to ask you a couple questions if I could.
Sure.
And I'm just going to start off with saying thank you for all the work you've done, both you and all the folks working on this, because it is a huge amount and very much have an appreciation for that. First question, as you look for feedback, how much did you look for feedback at the receiving end of your student? And so an example of that that I've seen done in my own experience is in another district, our senior curriculum writers always went to colleges and said, how did our students do? And employers, how are our students doing in their first year of post-high school employment?
Mhm.
The 8th grade curriculum writers went to the high school and said, how are our students doing when they show up for the high school classes? Are they prepared as part of the feedback model? Did we do any of that?
So that is part of the program review process. The teachers are coming together. We're gathering feedback from all teachers at all levels, about all levels. And then in addition to that, we're consulting with program experts. I'm going to actually have to, because I've been here for 5 minutes, defer a little bit over here to Dr. Willa. I as far as the I am not
Well,
sure
you
that the
you're new for the
process.
first 3 months, but I mean, you said you were here for 6.
I
mean,
know,
come
I
on.
know. I really was going to try really hard not to pull the new card, but I have to just a little bit because I don't want to misspeak. So I want to make sure that I don't misrepresent us.
We have a survey process that the data and data department helps us with, and they ask pointed questions about the curriculum. We survey kids, we survey teachers, we survey administrators, we survey parents. And I think Jordan has spoken to this before, that things like electives come out of that. So for like our social studies curriculum, our kids, we asked them what kinds of electives they were interested in. The top 2 choices were St. Louis history and women's history. You're going to see those brought in a year or two, I think, to you, wherever that falls in the cycle. So that we ask along the way and make sure that those surveys are pretty comprehensive when we send those out during the program review.
Thank you. To follow up, though, on what Director Bachert asked about, you said that we didn't get any attendees at the public forums from a parent perspective, but it does look like from your presentation and the comments you just made that we did get parent feedback somehow, either through surveys or Google Forms or whatever. Can you give us a sense of the parent feedback? Was it positive, negative, mixed? Just trying to assess, what the parents are thinking of our curriculum.
I can speak to the K-5 ELA because that's the most fresh in my mind right now. We had a lot of parent comments about grammar and spelling, and you can see that played out in the resources that we had. We had a lot of comments from students about wanting to read texts that were interesting to them. So we pay attention to those things as we're choosing the resources, because that's really important feedback for us to have.
And I would say that the feedback is really asking us to evaluate current programming by saying, what is it you would like to see? Like, what is working and what would you like to see happening differently? So less of a, do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it good? Is it not good? More of a, what's working and what could we be doing differently? Yes. And so they're gathering feedback. And I think you're getting like where we think it needs to improve, but also what we think is working really well.
I think, just to be transparent on it, what I wanted to make sure of is that our parents are engaging some way, shape, or form in giving us feedback, even if they don't attend a public session. Otherwise, I would have a different comment, which is if we're not getting any feedback from parents, should we stop and make sure we're getting feedback before we go on?
Right.
So if we are getting feedback, thumbs up, that's good. And then last question, if I could. Well, maybe not last question. I'll reserve my right to ask more maybe. But how do you feel about this year's changes? Were we tweaking or were we making major overhauls anywhere?
Were we tweaking or making major overhauls? I think, well, I think we have a variety of things because we are adding a course, ASL 3. So that's not a tweak. That's a big change. And in some areas the standards don't change. We've talked about math standards our math standards are math standards. And so we're really just reevaluating what is the best way to ensure that we are teaching them to the best of our ability. There's, talk about how do we do that differently. So I don't know if Marietta is going to talk at all about the spiraling, but that is something that she worked really hard to make sure that typically math is like we're doing this concept and then this concept and then this concept, and really working hard to make sure that some of those concepts spiral so that students have more opportunities for exposure. So in general, I'd say they're tweaking, except for where we have new classes.
Yeah, I personally went through a situation where we essentially threw out the math book and said, nope, we did this wrong, and we rewrote the curriculum and said, nope, we missed.
Yes, and I think often it's really about like, well, when we wrote it, the standards in that order, presented in that way, we thought would work. Now, based on what we've learned, what we know about student learning, we need to make an adjustment. So we're gonna change that during this next cycle. So I think that's where we are.
Good. Thank you.
Carrie,
Go ahead.
can you talk a little bit more about how the interventions and extension piece of the writing happens?
Yes, I can. Not really, no. Can you help me out with that? I haven't seen all of this in process yet, so I'm going to let somebody else who's seen the whole process play out.
The biggest place where I think you're going to see that intervention piece play out in curriculum documents, it's not going to be necessarily in the document, but you're going to see it in the proficiency scale. So in that 2, before the student hits the 3, you're going to see all the prerequisite skills that they would need in order to reach that 3. And that's really helpful to the teacher in the classroom when that student hasn't mastered that 3 to know what kinds of things they might need to hit on. And the extension comes in that 4. So that really is the biggest piece. We do have separate curriculum documents that we provide for MTSS in particular with specific resources tied to specific standards. At the elementary level, those are pretty well fleshed out so that that support is there. And that's, of course, an ongoing process. So we're constantly trying to add things to that to give teachers tools in their hands when they're working with extensions and interventions. The other piece that I think is really helpful is that our instructional coaches make regular visits to classrooms to observe students and help that teacher figure out what that student needs in terms of an extension or an intervention. So they do a lot of sitting and reading with a student or watching a student solve a problem or those kinds of things so they can kind of get a gauge on what that student might need, and then they reach out and help the teacher.
Okay. Thank you.
Our curriculum coordinators do some of that as well. So yeah, so that yes.
That leads to a question that I have in terms of meeting all those standards. So for each curriculum, and this may be more of a Shelley question, is that do we have a matrix that shows all the standards being met or covered over a course or a curriculum?
So
because you talk about spiraling up to make sure all the skills are met. What about the standards? Can we verify that we are addressing all the standards in a particular curriculum?
So matrix, no, but as I said when we were talking about the writing of the curriculum, the curriculum coordinator ensures that all standards are in the curriculum documents. So the K-5 coordinator is ensuring that from K through 5, every K-5 standard appears in our K-5 documents. Same with our 6-12 coordinators. So they work with teachers to put them into the documents, and then before we bring them to you, we've gone back through and made sure that every single standard is in our curriculum.
Would it be possible to develop a matrix to do that?
That is something we could look into.
Just that you could see, like in first grade, my concern would be that we would leave, and I have ultimate faith and trust in our coordinators, but if you leave anything out or it's not addressed, it can have a domino effect later on.
Oh, absolutely. Students. Yes, absolutely. If there are no further questions, I am going to then introduce Dr. Megan Bray, who is going to come up and speak to you about middle school science.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you tonight about science curriculum. So I'm going to speak with you about our middle school science curriculum. So I was fortunate enough to work with a great group of dedicated teachers this summer to rewrite this curriculum. Our standards didn't change at the state level or national level. So there's not big sweeping changes as far as content, but we did take a deep look into instruction and specifically proficiency scales. So there's a lot of changes there that are really improvements to our process. So while we were going through those questions, I pulled some quick data from our survey from our program evaluation from our 6 through 12 science program review, and we actually received 73 teacher survey responses, 566 parent survey responses, and 4,144 student responses. So a lot of feedback to the 6 through 12 science program evaluation. One of our biggest findings was that parents and students are really pleased with our science program. A lot of responses like keep it as is, it's great, it's working well. We did see improvements that we could make in having different modes of instruction and assessment for students and providing students a multitude of ways to show their learning. So that was one big focus as far as 6 through 12 in our program, as well as the research says that it is best for student engagement and adding to the relevance of science if you bring in real world phenomena. So taking a look at what's going on in the world around you, asking questions, wondering. So that was one of the big things that we took into this middle school curriculum rewrite. And in light of that information, we not only took a focus on phenomena, but we also took a focus on issues-based things that are relevant to our students and relevant to the community around them. So for example, if we are talking about in 7th grade earth science, if we're talking about water and the process of earth processes with water, we may talk about floods that are affecting our local community and how do we mitigate those, and talking about erosion and deposition and pulling in the content, but with an issues-based mindset. Additionally, so I mentioned one of the big things that we added was proficiency scales. Proficiency scales allow us as teachers to look at what students should know, understand, and be able to do with regards to the standard. And it also lets our students see that information. One nice thing that we also added was we took those proficiency scales with that teacher language in there and put it in a student-friendly language in an I can statement tracker is what we called it, to be able to have students to allow themselves to evaluate their own growth in regards to the learning outcomes that we expect that they learn. So not only teachers looking at what the target is, but the students as well in the student-friendly language, and both having a common target. That is what I have for you tonight. I want to thank you for allowing me to present, and I know that I could not do this work without my great teachers that were on the writing committees. They were outstanding, and I couldn't have done it without them.
I'll just make a comment. Thank you very much, Dr. Bray, for bringing that statistics here, because that takes me from saying, okay, what kind of feedback did we get, to, okay, we got feedback.
Yes.
And one of the things I'd recommend, Dr. Willey, is, getting that data into future presentations. And again, it just gives us as the board the confidence that, yes, we did get a lot of feedback here. What'd you say, 500 or
yeah,
parents?
There were just over 4,144 student survey responses, 566 parent.
Yeah, I mean, right there, I'm like, okay, I went from being concerned how much feedback did we get, was everybody sleeping, to, okay, no, you got feedback.
A lot of feedback, yeah.
Bob,
Yes.
or Director Cadigan, I think the difference with the feedback is what they're referring to as the beginning of the process versus the end of the process. So the feedback that they're getting is at the very beginning of the curriculum writing process, but at the end, once the documents are developed, that's where we're not getting as much feedback from parents.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's just, still getting feedback to chart your course, to me, is extremely important. That gave you, a path to go by. Okay, hey, here's the feedback. We need to go in this direction. Now, how do we go there? Now I get it. most parents probably don't want to sit down and read through a curriculum document. Right? They know what their kid gets when their kid comes home with homework. They look at assignments, so I understand, some of the curriculum documents put me to sleep, I'll be honest.
But I'm guessing, we're talking about the beginning of the feedback, and then going to the end. I guess not getting an answer is a good thing, right? Or not getting feedback at the end, tells us that the kids are doing well. That's how I'm taking it. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know when we develop the survey and the program evaluation process, it's all built around the belief statements and what we believe students what their experience should be in our program. So getting that much feedback up front really helps with the development of the courses throughout when you start to get to the curriculum writing. And it helps inform like, what changes do we really need to make? What do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? What should we continue doing?
Can I ask about the teachers' feedback?
Yeah.
Can I ask what do you get the most, and just what are some of the concerns they get?
As far as the program evaluation or specifically to the middle school rewrite?
Just the program.
Since it is based on the belief statements, a lot of the feedback is, a lot of the questions were really pointed as, do you bring in real world, or is the real world phenomena brought into the classroom? And many of the teachers have had a lot of instructional training on those sorts of things. So a lot of the feedback is relatively positive from the teachers. There are some things that we did have that will come into effect when we start writing this summer, specifically for our high school courses, asked about semester courses, because right now we only have one semester course at the high school level, which can make it tricky for scheduling. So we did have some additional comments around that, but all over relatively positive from teachers. Anything else? All right.
Thank you, Dr. Bray. So I'm going to reread this motion. The motion is to postpone approval of the secondary science, 6th grade life science and challenge life science, 7th grade earth and space science and challenge earth and space science, 8th grade physical science and challenge physical science courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you. I will go ahead and introduce my colleague, Marietta Kozatek. She is the math coordinator for 6 through 12.
Thank you very much. As she comes up to the podium, this next motion, can I have a motion to postpone approval of the computer science, exploring computer science courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting?
Motion.
Motion and a second. Welcome.
Thank you. Board members, Dr. Kane, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. I am here this evening to talk about a new class for our computer science program. It is called Exploring Computer Science. This is a semester fundamentals class that provides an introduction to the different elements of a very broad category that we call computer science. So these are the current courses that we offer. And this is the course that we're proposing. So last year, I think the question was, would I be coming back with a course because we sunset some courses for our 9th graders? And here I am, as promised. So from our program review, these are the outcomes and proposed shifts. And then this is actually the results of a survey that we gave our graduates. We surveyed our graduates from the last, I think, 4 or 5 years on what would improve the coursework that we're offering in computer science. Just to kind of recap what's on here, the recommendations from our program review were to consolidate the courses and to create a new course that provided introductory knowledge on the different aspects of computer science. And this course helps our students understand the different elements in computer science and which subsequent courses they would be interested in. From our survey, we can see that there's interest in different areas, but sometimes our students are not really aware of what encompass the field of computer science. For example, some students come in and they know exactly what they want to take. They know that they want to take, intro to programming, then they want to take C++, and they're going to take AP Comp Sci and maybe, PLTW cybersecurity. But then we have students that come in and they enroll in something that we like to call fundamentals of app and game, thinking they're going to play games. And lo and behold, they discovered that they're going to be doing some very basic programming. They're going to be learning concepts such as if statements, loops, variables, and operators. And so we, the PLC, the district PLC, really felt that we needed to provide a course that described all the elements of computer science so that students would then know what to enroll in afterwards, what they were interested in, and what their passions could be, and maybe not enroll in fun and app and game and think that we're going to play computer games for credit. So the course is going to provide our students with basic programming skills, networking and hardware fundamentals, website design, and the impact of computer science in the modern world. It is written using our Missouri Computer Science Performance Standards and has the proficiency scales linked in the curriculum documents. In this course, the students will create authentic computer artifacts, like they will build 2 versions of a computer using a resource called Parts Picker. There's something that I learned in getting to work with computer science is that some of the names are really fun. So we're going to work with Parts Picker, and they're going to have limitations in 2 prompts. They'll be given like a monetary guideline, or they'll be asked to do more of the operating pieces. And then students will also review the privacy statements of various sites, including social media, just to help increase the awareness of what information is out there once you're on the web. So this course is going to be offered to our students starting in 9th grade. It's designed for the beginning computer science student, and it is the result of the talent and knowledge of our high school district computer science teachers, who I cannot speak highly enough about, who are committed to creating a strong and cohesive computer science program that meets the needs of all our learners. What questions can I answer for you?
So maybe a bit of a nit question. As I looked at the overall course curriculum, I was impressed. I thought that this was fantastic for middle school until I saw one course which actually made the back of my hair stand on edge. How are we doing teaching C++ at a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade level?
Well, these are actually our high school courses.
Oh, okay.
And did it say?
It says high school.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. Thank you.
So these are our high school courses, and I'm actually really, really proud of the work that we have done, and my predecessors, Bob and Glenn and Brian, to create this offering. I think we offer a very wide net of computer science standards and skills so that our students could truly graduate taking computer science classes at our high school and have a really good fundamental and advanced knowledge of different aspects of the computer science field.
Thank you.
Yes.
As a mom of a college student that has had some crash courses abroad with Excel, where does that fall in high school curriculum? Shelley, that might be a question for you, but it seems like multiple majors in college, they're coming into college with an expectation that they've been exposed to Excel. Where does that fall in high school curriculum?
Mostly in business classes is what
Okay.
that's going to play out.
I think it's really important to note that I was talking to one of the computer science teachers the other day, and she's like, our kids know how to use computers, right? They can run circles around us with their computers, but they don't understand how they work. They don't know where things are stored. They can't tell you how data goes from one place to another. They don't understand that when you put something in, you know, how that could be disseminated. And so the goal of this class is to give kids just that basic understanding so that they're literate in computer terminology, so that they are capable of being aware of the world they're living in. So it's a very, very fun class. There's something else we're going to work with in there called Raspberry Pis. They're not baked goods. So.
That motion is to postpone approval of the Computer Science Exploring Computer Science Courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes, and I think we're continuing on
Yeah,
here.
continue on. Okay.
Could I have a motion to postpone approval of the secondary math 6 through 8, and integrated math 6, 7, and 7, 8 courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All right, let's hear about this.
So hello, still Marietta Kozatek, still here. And at this time, I am here to present our new and improved curricula for math grades 6 through 8. It is really important to note that the standards for math have not changed. What we really have done with our curricula is what I'm presenting is what the Curriculum Writing Committee determined is the best organization of the standards to meet the findings from our program review. So I have up here the findings from our program review, and they are the results of surveys that we gave our parents and teachers. We're also surveyed in the process about standards prior to the grade levels to help answer previous questions. So we have areas of excellence that we're extremely proud of, but we also are aware that we have some areas for growth. So in revisiting the curriculum, we evaluated our essential standards, took a very deep dive into our MAP data. We met with our elementary colleagues to understand the progression in K through 5. We wanted to develop better cohesion and consistency across the grade levels. And we also surveyed our teachers, as you mentioned before, from the previous grades to talk about where the students were coming in to the subsequent grade, where they were strong and where we needed to build more support. And so creating our proficiency scales, we used the Missouri Learning Standards, connected them directly to our curriculum. So you'll see there's a little icon to the curriculum to the right. And lo and behold, we find that we're supporting now having the proficiency scales tied directly to the curriculum, many of the items where we saw we could grow. For example, the proficiency scales provide an increased focus on the standards. We really need to have an increased focus on our grade level standards. The proficiency scales in the curricula provide better clarity and communication with both parents and students. They set very clear targets about where we want students to be to have mastery of the standards. The proficiency scales help support and meet the needs of our individual learners, and they provide a tool to identify and provide early support and intervention. Additionally, we were asked about real-world applications, and that's provided through the curriculum in discussions about things like freezing temperatures, and that's positive and negative integers, currency exchanges for conversions in units and ratios and proportions. We're going to relate the volume of cubes to perfect cubes because those are tangible physical objects we can relate to. And then we're going to investigate simple interest as an application of percentages. These are the proposed shifts that came from our program review, and this is where the curriculum is going to address these changes in the writing and in the instructional practices. So our vocabulary and strategies are now more consistent. The items more centralized because we are using the proficiency scales tied to the standard right there in the documents. The sequence is quite purposeful and designed to engage students. For example, we start each year with content that is more easily accessible for students to begin. Integers in 6th grade with integer chips, so they'll have manipulatives. 7th grade with single event probability, and 8th grade will start with rigid motion, which is the translations, dilations, transformations of objects. The sequence of the units also provides spiraling of the contents in the domains to continuously check for long-term understanding. And I can reference what Dr. Skeeters was saying earlier. We used to teach math in isolation, like, okay, we're going to do this unit that's going to hit ratios, proportions, rates, and percents, and then we're going to move on. But we didn't spiral. And what we're seeing, what research is telling us, is that it's not retained. And so what we have done with the curriculum and the scope and the sequence is we've actually spiraled it. So we're going to hit some heavy hitters, and then we're going to take a little break with something, and then we'll hit heavy hitters again, but we're going to come back to them. So like the 8th grade curriculum has the algebraic thinking that's spiraling throughout the entire course. There's also a balance in the curriculum of direct instruction with facilitating discovery and conversations, and conceptual knowledge and math facts and fluency are also balanced in the curriculum. By tying the proficiency scales, proficiency is clear and it's communicated so that students have an understanding of what is expected and they have an opportunity to engage with high-level tasks. And I'm going to speak to this for a minute. When we hit our target at 3, that student is exactly meeting where we want them to be. And so that's a good conversation. Like, this is exactly where we want you to be. But when a student has an aha moment in a math class, and Dr. Skeeters and I were talking about this, that makes you go, wow, that's amazing that you actually connected all those pieces together and came up with that thought, or you're showing me that evidence of learning, that is where we're looking at that for. And so that is where the proficiency scales give us very clear, and we're very lucky in math that DESE has item specifications that tell us the rigor of where we want our students to be in the math standards, because they build. So you might see something in 6th grade that builds in 7th. But what we want to make sure is that we also have the opportunity for our students to apply that to things that really do, as a teacher, make you go, that's amazing that you connected and applied that to something that I did not teach you. The proficiency scales provide the progression of learning to help provide the appropriate intervention or enrichment strategies to help our students reach their math potential. I want to say this work was made possible by the work of dedicated professional teachers who really committed to providing our students with a strong foundation in mathematics while creating welcoming and nurturing classrooms. I could not do the work without them. Thank you. And what questions do you have for me?
Well, it looks like you were very comprehensive in your
You're
presentation.
gonna buy on this one.
So I'm taking it by. Nobody wants me to sing the quadratic formula.
It was.
Thank you. I
Oh,
really appreciate that.
So that motion is to postpone approval of the secondary math 6 through 8, and integrated math 6, 7, and 7, 8 courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to introduce Jordan McGahee. He is our coordinator of K-12 social studies.
All right, as Jordan comes up, I will read this motion. This is a long one. Could I have a motion to postpone approval of the social studies 6th grade world history and challenge world history, 7th grade world geography and challenge world geography, 8th grade U.S. history and challenge U.S. history, AP economics, AP European history, AP government and comparative government, AP human geography, AP psychology, AP U.S. history, AP world history, modern courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Welcome.
We obviously had a very busy summer last summer. Members of the cabinet, members of the board, Dr. Kane, wanted to start by thanking you all for the opportunity to present tonight. And before I get into talking about the great work that our teachers did, as Marietta and Megan have specified, I wanted to start by thanking the work that our teachers have put in. Obviously reading through the courses that we wrote last summer, that work wouldn't have been possible without the work that our dedicated teachers put in. I would like to call out one very specific teacher who's with us tonight. Ryan Giesing from LaSalle Springs was one of our curriculum writers for 8th grade United States history. And Ryan and all of our middle school and all of our AP teachers are the reason why I do what I do, and supporting them and providing them the support that I would have wanted as a teacher is kind of my why in this role. So I wanted to make sure that I called out Ryan, all of our teachers, because without them, this work wouldn't be possible. Okay, so our courses that we're bringing forward last year, when I was with you all around this time, I brought forward our 4 core high school courses: 9th grade US and honors US history, world history at 10th grade level, and United States government. So we're in the first year of implementation for those 4 courses. That was a byproduct of the program review that we did for 612 social studies in 2021, 2022. We did that work over 4 days throughout the year. Director Cadigan, I know you asked questions about feedback, so I wanted to provide our statistics for our feedback. So we received about 3,200 student responses, 450 parent responses, and 72 teacher responses, which is about 75% of our secondary social studies teachers. So we had really ample responses on the feedback that we were provided, and that feedback was really the primary driver of the work that our teachers did.
First, thank you for that. And I am going to sleep a lot better because it really is very comforting knowing we're getting that feedback. It is.
Yeah, we are. And I think it shows an incredible passion that our community has for learning and academics in Rockwood, which is what we all know. But it's great to have that confirmation as well. So this year, in the stage in the cycle that we're in, we start off with our 4 core high school courses to start the process. And this year we have a mix of middle school and AP social studies as well. The reason why we don't have AP right at the same time as our 4 core high school courses is a lot of those teachers, let's say if you teach 9th grade US history, you may also teach AP United States history, which would potentially limit who could write the curriculum, because it's a capacity issue, and we want to make sure that our teachers have the ability to focus to the best of their ability on what they're writing. So that's why we stagger it in the way that we do. And then we'll have elective high school curriculum writing starting this upcoming summer. So from our program review, we found some areas of excellence and some areas of growth, as all content areas did. First, the primary feedback we got from our community was that our course offerings were largely really strong. I'm fortunate to be a part of our St. Louis Social Studies Coordinator group. And through that group, we're able to look at and compare our course offerings to Parkway, Clayton, Ladue, all St. Louis County schools, Jefferson County schools, and schools throughout the area. And I'm proud to say that we have a really robust collection of social studies courses that students have the ability to take through our elective courses, our AP courses, and our required courses, or our state required courses. One of the things that came through our feedback, though, is even though our course offerings are very robust, at the state level, the way that the curriculum is constructed at times, there are limitations on what is provided. So building in more opportunities for students, all students, to see themselves in our curriculum, and for more additional supplementary feedback and building up to our curriculum of state and local history was something that our students really wanted to see more of. So that will come through, as Dr. Willett said earlier, with 2 new elective courses that I'll bring forward next year, History of St. Louis and Women's History, that were the byproducts of what students asked for when we asked them what courses would you like to see offered through our social studies program. So that will be coming. It won't be part of the program tonight, but that will be coming in the future. For other findings from our program review, the program provides high quality opportunities for students to learn about history, civics, social science. One of the big things, obviously, over the last 6 to 7 years, since the last time we did a program review for social studies, is there's really more of an emphasis and an importance on media literacy now, I think, than ever before. And I think I said this last year as well, and it just continues to be true given the advent and development and continuous development, as people like Bob knows and doing the work that he does. AI is really advancing things a lot, especially with media literacy. So making sure that our teachers have continuous and ongoing professional development around the way the media literacy works in the world, and the rate in which the resources at our kids' disposal doubles and triples as rapidly as it does is important. And the majority of students in Rockwood feel like our courses effectively engage them and prepare them for future grade levels in life after high school. That's something that I'll get into with our AP courses here in a little bit, because our AP courses are specifically designed to be college level courses. Our students do very well in those courses. So I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So for middle school and AP, the first 4 or so bullets on both are pretty similar. We really want for all of our social studies courses to be active critical thinkers. We want knowledge and concepts to be integrated through the curriculum. So we do integrate and crosswalk the C3 framework national social studies standards, which are very skills-based, to the Missouri learning standards, which tend to be a little bit more content-based, and they're not necessarily written in conjunction with each other. So when world history writes, for example, they don't necessarily write in the same room as United States history. Whereas our national standards, they tend to build on each other quite a bit, and they're more skills-based. So we want to make sure that our students have the ability to have more of a skills-based connection to social studies, so that critical thinking, collaboration, primary source, secondary source analysis are really the skills that come through. But we also make sure that we crosswalk those with the Missouri learning standards, so that all of the content pieces that the state asks us to teach and our teachers want to teach are parts of the courses as well. So we have a good balance of both, and we really want our skills as social studies students and teachers throughout the district to be at the forefront of what we do within the district in social studies courses. Inquiry-based learning is a big part of what we ask students and teachers to really engage in Rockwood, and really getting to questioning and developing questions that really compel and engage students about the world and engage them in ways that require deep thinking and ask students to think deeply and use questioning and curiosity to guide their learning. That's something we center a lot of professional development around, specifically through document-based question writing and writing in general through AP courses, which again, I'll talk about here in a little bit. For middle school, we developed proficiency scales and ICANN statements so that we had the ability to look at our essential course outcomes and determine which skills are really going to be truly essential for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. One of the things that we had the benefit of high school had just written. So they had just wrote their proficiency scales, and the way the C3 framework standards are scaffolded, there are multiple levels of the same standard. So there's the D1, 5, 6, 8, and then D1, 5, 9, 12. It's the same standard, but it might look a little different in high school as it does in middle school. So we were able to have high school teachers that wrote high school curriculum come in and work with middle school teachers this year to vertically align our essential course outcomes that went from middle school to high school. So now we have some specification to be able to say, here's what primary source analysis should look like in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th, all the way up through 11th grade. So we can see a really strong vertical progression of those essential course outcomes that we have throughout social studies courses in Rockwood, which is something that we had been building upon for a while. But now that we had that time to be able to go through our latest curriculum writing iteration, we were able to do that. For AP courses, because College Board really dictates the curriculum and asks that districts that offer those courses align with the curriculum that's provided through their course and exam description. For those courses, we were a little bit more limited, but we wanted to make sure that if a course, the last time we adopted social studies curriculum for AP was 2016, 2017. Since then, a lot of our courses have been major program redesigns. I'll use a specific example. AP World History went through a really big, very public program redesign in 2019 through 2020. It used to include ancient world history, and through the redesign, now it's more AP World History Modern is what the course is called. So initially, what they had proposed was to start the course in 1450, which cut out a lot of early history. And there was community feedback that was provided. And as a result of that feedback, they changed the course to start in 1200. So not as much of a change as there was before, but there enough of a change that some early civilizations were able to be phased in because students really wanted more exposure to those early civilizations rather than maybe a more watered down version or a different version of European history. That is what the feedback was provided. So that was that redesign was put forward in 2019, 2020, but because we last wrote curriculum in 2018, that happened a year or two after we had gone through the curriculum process. And we had a couple of those redesign pieces that we had in place to make sure that our courses and our resources were aligned and properly evaluated and vetted. So our resources will be coming soon, but we wanted to make sure that our courses matched the most up-to-date redesigns for AP courses. And again, to the teachers' credit, even if a course has gone through redesign, they've been doing a wonderful job at attending professional development, making sure that they are properly trained on our course redesigns. And I'm happy to report that, our AP teachers do a fantastic job in Rockwood. Just to give one example, specifically last year, the average score for students that got a 3 or above on the AP United States History exam was 48%. So less than half of the students that took that test throughout the country scored well enough to get college credit. In Rockwood, it was 89%. So our teachers do a fantastic job, really, really fantastic job with our AP Social Studies courses. And the curriculum that we're bringing forward really matches the most updated redesigns of those courses. So with that,
I have a question about College Board. How often do they redesign the AP courses? Do they tweak it every year? Is it in a rotation like our curriculum is?
It's not every year. It does tend to be a little nebulous in terms of when it might be announced. And it does it's a fairly fluid process. With world history, there was notification that it was coming and it was in the works for a couple of years. But they may go through processes where they feel like they have a direction on where they want to take the course, but until they put it live and they gather feedback from, because there's usually pilot programs that happen where students in classrooms will pilot a course throughout the country, and then they'll gather feedback and decide whether or not the course in its recommended format actually works. And if it doesn't, they'll go back and revisit it and then do a hard launch after that, if that makes sense. So for that reason, usually they try to keep it within the 5 to 10 year window of a redesign, but there's usually always pilots and test groups that happen with that and data collection that takes place. So if they run through all of that and they find that what they thought would work might not, then at that point they might make changes and then go through a second pilot. So it really kind of depends on the process and how well it's received.
Thank you.
There's one word, robust. Reading these AP courses was like a college course in itself. So thank you for the staff and their dedication and your leadership.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have is, and you mentioned this, you're talking about looking at resources already, and are we leaning more toward digital resources that can be updated and kept current as opposed to hard copies that maybe sit on a shelf?
So the answer is yes to both. I think so. For AP courses especially, there's a big component of those courses that does ask students to analyze text. And so for that reason, our teachers and I both agree that we feel like we would be doing a little bit of a disservice if we didn't have a physical text in front of them. But with that said, to your point about digital resources continually upgrading, I talked about it earlier, the rate in which knowledge is available to kids now is doubling and tripling at a rate would have been incomprehensible 20 years ago. So I think it really behooves us to make sure that what we put in front of kids is the most up-to-date and vetted as possible. And at times that creates challenges because it means you're continuously vetting things over and over again. And I enjoy that because I'm a nerd, but our teachers really do as well, and they really enjoy that part of the process and vetting resources for our kids to make sure that what's in front of them is the best and most high quality resource. So our textbook companies, especially that we partner with their online texts, they do a great job now, a much better job, I think, than maybe 10, 15 years ago of really continuously updating things, listening to our feedback on what works, what doesn't work, and really updating the resources that we partner with them on to make sure that what is in front of our kids is the most updated information possible.
So while our teachers are vetting some of the resources, we're also including media literacy
Oh,
for our
absolutely.
students and how to judge and evaluate resources.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've done a lot of professional development. I've led quite a lot of professional development alongside, librarians in the district. I partnered with Margaret Sullivan, who is the lead librarian here at Summit, on a lot of PD. We've brought in speakers from multiple different entities around media literacy throughout the area. It is really crucial that our teachers continually receive high quality and updated training on media literacy. And we have a lot of teachers that do fantastic work in classrooms every day. Right before break, I was in a classroom where they were using Checkology from the News Literacy Project, which is a really high quality resource around media literacy and, specifically, and they were looking at lateral reading across the top of the page and having multiple tabs open to make sure that you were getting exposure to multiple sources at the same time, rather than just reading vertically where you're only confined to one source. So it's skills like that our teachers are really doing a great job of bringing to the forefront now.
In my house, it's the quoting constantly of Pebble Go. So there's that. And then I have 2 college kids who like to just kind of rip that apart. So it's pretty funny. It's really good conversation at our house. All right. Well, thank you very much. That was a very enlightening topic to go over all of those. So we appreciate that. Yeah, of course.
Or maybe I'll make 2 comments, which is I think I can probably out-nerd you in history if you want to try sometime.
Okay. I would love that.
I did 798 on the achievement test in history with American history back in the day without taking American history.
It's impressive.
But having said that, I do want to make a serious comment, which is I am very glad to see that we are adding courses on St. Louis history and women's history, which seems to be in the opposite direction of some other things going on in the greater St. Louis area. So I just want to say thank you for promoting those courses and going in that direction. That is exactly where we want to go as a community. Knowledge is precious, and there's no such thing as a bad course. So we need to explore expanding people's horizons. And I look forward to seeing those two courses
Thank you very
in
much.
future years. So
Thank-
thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
For all of you that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having your data offhand. I know that made you probably happy.
Extremely.
I did look it up today, so I just wanted to make sure that I had everything in place for you. But yeah, we were very fortunate to have the feedback that we did, and I think again it speaks volumes to how we
So I'm getting
value.
a reputation of being predictable now. I have to change.
Yeah.
All right. So that motion is to postpone approval of the social studies, 6th grade world history and challenge world history, 7th grade world geography and challenge world geography, 8th grade U.S. history and challenge U.S. history, AP economics, AP European history, AP government and comparative government, AP human geography, AP psychology, AP U.S. history, AP world history, modern courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you very
Right,
much.
thank you. I now have the pleasure of introducing my wonderful colleague, Dr. Megan Meyer, who is the coordinator of K-12 Fine Arts.
All right, as Dr. Meyer comes up, I will read this motion. Could I have a motion to postpone approval of the vocal music K through 5 vocal general music courses, choir and music, 6th through 8th grade choir, high school choral, high school chamber choir, high school show choir, and music production 2 courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting?
So moved.
Motion and a second. I might take up like auctioneering or something after
You
tonight.
should.
Yeah, thinking about it. Getting there.
All right, thank you and good evening, Dr. Kane and members of the board. On the screen, you now have the list of all of our fine arts courses that are offered in Rockwood, which is a wonderful, robust list of courses here. So fine arts includes visual art, theater arts, and music, which includes our orchestra program, our band program, our choir, vocal music programs, and also guitar and general music. Because we have so many courses in the fine arts area, we divide those up in terms of program review and curriculum writing. So this past year, we have focused on writing for our vocal music, K-12 vocal music curriculum. Just for your knowledge, we're in program review for 612 theater arts, and we are implementing band and guitar curriculum. So we're always at one step in the cycle with different courses. So you can see that the vocal music courses are highlighted on the screen. We also are doing some work on a music production 2 classes, which is a new class that we're offering this year. One of the things that I love about supporting fine arts is that for each of these courses, in addition to it being a class that our students can enroll in during the day, many of them have a co-curricular and an extracurricular component to them also, which make these programs such a special part of our schools and communities. We mentioned going to plays and musicals and concerts, and we appreciate the way you all as a board and our cabinet support those events. Because we're focusing on vocal music today, I did want to share with you some accomplishments of our vocal music students. We had 54 middle school students who were named to all suburban choirs this year, 55 high school students that were named to district choirs. We have 5 high school students who will be performing as a part of the all-state high school choir next week at our Missouri Music Educators Association conference, and we have 6 elementary students who will be participating in the all-state children's choir next week. So we're very proud of those students and their accomplishments, and of course the teachers that support them in achieving those accomplishments. So we did a program review for K-12 vocal music last year. We had 471 students who responded to that and 237 parents. One of maybe the unique things about our department is because it's smaller, we have 20 elementary music teachers and 11 choir teachers. The majority of them participate in the program review process, and then the majority of them also participate in the writing. So we have teacher input and feedback that's really built into the process there. And so some of the findings we had from our program review is that we had a lot of really positive feedback, that our choir programs are valued and appreciated by our parents and students in their current format, and we wanted to keep that in mind as we considered any changes that we were making. We asked about electives or other interests that students might have. Piano and songwriting came up as popular requests from students. Our middle and high school choir students said they would like to have more opportunities to give input in the music that they sing. And we have opportunities. The good news is there's opportunities within our standards to do that. So I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. Parents, from the parent perspective, but also from the student perspective, parents were very interested in developing music literacy, making sure that their students were, when they were taking music classes, were developing skills and being able to read music notation. And our parents of our elementary students said that they wanted more communication. They wanted to hear more of what was going on in the elementary music classroom. So that was feedback we considered with our elementary teachers as well. So the shifts that we have made, or that we're in the process of making, is that we have created a sequence of learning activities that for beginning, intermediate, and advanced students in the selection of repertoire, the music that they're singing. And like I said, that this is a part of, we have new national standards in 2014 for all arts. And then in 2019, the state of Missouri adopted those. And there are selecting standards that are in there. And that's been a little bit, it's been a big shift for our teachers actually, because selecting music has traditionally been a teacher function. And it still is in many ways. Teachers are still absolutely selecting the music, but we're trying to kind of pull back the curtain on that process and make sure that students understand the criteria that teachers are looking at when they select music, to try to help them understand how one day they'll be able to make music choices for themselves in terms of music that would be appropriate for them to perform when they have opportunities, either as a soloist or as a part of their ensemble. And we also looked at opportunities for how we could add songwriting and piano either into our current offerings or as separate classes. And the way we've decided to address that is to add some songwriting to our choir classes. Our choir classes will continue to have a focus on being their performance ensembles, and that is the focus of those groups. But we do have creating standards that appear in all of our music ensemble classes, and we feel like we can give some students opportunities to engage in activities that would be around songwriting that might be highly engaging for them to develop their music literacy skills in different ways. Piano, we're going to address actually in the new music production class that we're offering. So this school year, we implemented a new course that you all approved last year, and it was music production at the high school level, a semester-long class. In its first year of implementation, we have 116 students who have enrolled in that class, which is very strong for a brand new high school elective. Very appreciative of our high school principals and music departments that have supported this with their staffing and scheduling to make it possible for those students who have expressed interest in taking that class to make it possible. So with it being so popular right away, within the first couple of months of the class being offered, students started asking, can I take it again? Can we do more of this? Because we know that all of our high school students have to have a full fine arts credit to graduate. We had students that really enjoyed the music production and wanted to take a second semester. So we did go ahead and write a second semester of music production. So that will be music production 2, and that's one of the courses that we're bringing forward tonight. Within there, we did a module that is on piano skills. So our students who are in music production 2 will have the opportunity to develop some very basic piano skills that they can use when they're producing music electronically. And then, you know, if they choose to pursue that in the future, in a performance level as well. So we're working collaboratively on the communication issue with elementary music programs and making sure that we're continuing to highlight all the good work that's happening in elementaries. We recognize that part of that is we got continued feedback from parents through parent RLC, and we got to have more. A survey gives us one kind of information, but then getting to have those follow-up conversations is so helpful. And so we gathered some feedback, but some of that was just bringing back more of the concerts and programs that we'd done at the elementary level that maybe waned a little bit during our COVID years. And so making sure that we're getting back to meeting the full expectation of all of the programs and concerts that we are offering at the elementary level. And then working within buildings to figure out what's the most effective way to share information with parents at each level. We've also done some professional learning with Parent Square with our elementary teachers also to help with that. The final thing, so our national standards, the big shift in 2014 is that they're now more broad and process focused as opposed to they used to be very skill based. And there are wonderful things about that, but we find that in our Rockwood curriculum, we also want to have very specific measurable learning targets that are associated with those broader standards that are process-based. And we had done that pretty well in the performing units, been pretty specific about the learning sequence of learning music notation and rhythm. But we hadn't done it as much as we would have liked to in the connecting standards. And so we did go back and make some specific references to specific content areas and other art forms and music styles that we wanted to make sure that our elementary teachers were addressing in each year to make sure that students are just receiving a good, well-rounded vocal music education. All right, are there any questions?
Yes, I want to just want to ask across, like, particularly the elementary, that we have a vertical alignment of these skills and processes. That's my understanding when I read through them. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So that you've had dialogue like second to third, so that, the same teacher's probably teaching it, so it makes it a little bit easier, but knowing that our students are progressing and not just either missing skills or staying at one level.
Absolutely, you said it really well. We do have that progression. We have specifically laid out, especially with pitches, melody, and rhythm. We have the specific pitch relationships, rhythms we want that are the benchmarks, the targets for each grade level. One of the benefits of having the same teacher for multiple years is that teachers can reinforce that and then address any gaps. If a class or an individual student is ready to move on to something more advanced, again, it's the same teacher. They know what's coming the next grade level and can introduce some skills early when it's appropriate to do so.
You know, commenting on having the same teacher. So I have 3 daughters in 3 different schools, elementary, middle, and high. And one of my daughters, my oldest, had Mr. Livesay in elementary school, and now he's in high school. So she's absolutely loving her orchestra classes with him, and of course Mr. Patton, and you know he's one of the best ones also. So I just want to thank you. You guys have one of the most amazing teachers, not just you guys, all of you. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's a great department.
Yes.
Any other board questions or comments? All right, so that motion is to postpone approval of the vocal music, K through 5 vocal general music courses, choir and music, 6th through 8th grade choir, high school choral, high school chamber choir, high school show choir, and music production, 2 courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, drum roll, please.
All right. It is my pleasure to present the last curricular area of the evening, Mr. Jeff Tamaroff, my colleague who is the coordinator of world language and English as a second language program.
Awesome. Welcome, Jeff. So as Jeff comes forward, could I please have a motion to postpone approval of the world languages, American Sign Language 1 through 3, and Heritage Spanish 1 courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting?
Second.
Motion and a second. Welcome.
Thank you, board, and it's good to see everybody. I'll make this brief so we're not here till 10. If you look at the slide that's up there at this point, last year when we talked, DESE, for the first time since 2009, was going to start a state level program review for world languages. I was actually asked in February to be part of that committee, and it's quickly dissipated. So I had hoped to be able to present French, German, and Spanish as well, but we had to sort of circle the wagons and figure out how we're going to address that. So that will be, next year will come with those. I forgot I had the clicker. So here's our course offerings. We're going to be offering 2 new things that, as Miss Bays mentioned, so we're going to add a 3rd level of ASL 3. We are starting our 15th year with American Sign Language in Rockwood. And this has probably been our most consistent request, is when we're getting ASL 3, when we're getting ASL 3. We had, it was the right time to do it. We have a veteran staff. We have 4 teachers in, but they're very experienced and eager to add that level of sign language. And I'll get into that in a little bit. And I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Cook, Tom Cook, in the audience. Tom, in his former life, was a Spanish teacher, and we and at Marquette in particular, and we have a pretty sizable heritage Hispanic population at Marquette, and we have struggled consistently to figure out what level of Spanish to put those students in, because our Spanish 1 sequence, Spanish 2 sequence just is not the appropriate level of courses. We are very fortunate within Rockwood to have 2 teachers, one at Eureka and one at Marquette, who are from Spanish-speaking countries and have lived in the United States for a long time and know this population's needs. So I leaned on them a lot in the creation of this course. And I think, as I mentioned, there are 4 other districts that are currently in the area that are investigating adding a heritage language sequence at this time as well. So we've been doing a lot of partnering, Parkway, Rittner, and Northwest. So we're excited to see how that looks. The teachers and I made the decision, since this is so new, it would probably be better to rather write just 1 course, see how that goes, make revisions, and come in to go to Director Cadigan's feedback process. There's all kinds of ways. We're always collecting feedback. Some of it is from the students in that capacity. And then, as I was mentioning before with ASL 3, a lot of that was parent requests. I can't tell you how many emails I've had in the past about that. So again, those things strongly came out in the program review, and I'm just going to focus on the ASL and the heritage language classes for this point. When I come back next year, we'll talk about all the program data, review data for the other classes. The big thing that we were noticing when we decided to rewrite ASL 1 and ASL 2, when we added ASL 3, the ability to have really what is an intermediate moving into advanced level sign language class, was we had to reorganize our unit so our kids were prepared for that level 3 class. It's a lot different when you have a 2-year program and you sort of say goodbye to the kids, sadly, but the kind of kid who takes an immediate level language class typically is thinking about doing something in their career with that language, be it a minor in college, or we do have a lot of students that are taking ASL that are entering into the interpreting program at Flow Valley in our local community college program. So we started with that knowledge that most of the kids who are going to be taking this class are probably going to be interpreters or using it in their careers at some point. So if you had the opportunity to read through that class, you will notice we highlighted using interpreting skills a lot, but also career opportunities. And the big difference between what we're doing in that level is actually being able to sustain a sign language conversation for more than a minute or 2. I'm sure you've all been at events where there's been a signer, and there's typically 1 or 2 people for more complicated events. So our music shows that we have people at and that sort of stuff. So we're getting to that level. And another big thing that we talked about and we noticed in conversations were A lot of sign actually is not just using your hand, it's your facial expressions and also your signing space, which is essentially this part around your body. So our kids have struggled with that in the past, and doing the curriculum rewrite at this time allowed us to address those issues and bring things like idioms and the use of those non-manual markers earlier into the curriculum and cycle through. So as I said, we have a large growing native Spanish speaking population, flipping back to heritage language, and we have struggled, as I said, for a while to figure out where those kids go. Typically, the kids want to go into Spanish 1, but it's quickly where it's apparent that you don't need to learn the words for mom and dad or breakfast or your day. So we really wanted to focus on placing those students in a class context where they can take advantage of their great oral skills and really work on their literacy skills. A lot of our students that are heritage speakers quickly, if they're not provided with instruction, lose those native language skills. So we wanted to be able to actually have our kids that graduate really truly be biliterate. We've received some feedback actually at the parent RLC about how employers are looking for biliterate Spanish speakers. And it's not just being able to have a conversation, but actually producing written documents. So it was very encouraging that we're going to be able to address that need within the business community. And as I said there, we're partnering with some other school districts in the area. There's our instructional focus, kind of went over that. The big thing, as I said, was addressing those non-manual markers and the use of idiom. And we're always the stigma, I will use that word, of the deaf community and addressing that. There's a lot of students that in those classes that learn quite a lot about how deaf culture operates. And even though you're living in the United States, there's a very specific subculture with the capital D deaf community. So we're trying to particularly address that in our enduring understandings. We figure some kids may not continue on in their language careers, but if we've given you a solid cultural background, you should be able to maintain your proper interactions. And then for heritage language there, as I said, really working on academic reading and writing and focusing on those sets of literary skills, moving beyond what's largely informal language to more formal uses. But we also thought it was very important. Our Spanish community is growing, but it's very heterogeneous. We have students from all over the Spanish-speaking world. We actually just today enrolled a few students from Costa Rica, and we enrolled a student from Colombia earlier in the week. So we'll be able to have those students share their traditions, because there's a lot of suppositions, I guess, that my Spanish culture is the same as my neighboring country's Spanish culture. I know Izzy and I have had these conversations within Arabic culture as well. So giving the students that space to understand who I am as an individual and how I can interact within the varieties of Spanish and the varieties of cultures that exist within the Spanish-speaking world. So that is that. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I just have a comment to all of you. Thank you so much for leading the staff through this process. I can speak from experience. Giving up your summer days to do curriculum writing is, it's giving a lot of yourselves for your students. So thank you very much for all the time and effort you put into this.
Thank you.
Any board questions or comments for Jeff before I read this last one? Okay.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I guess I should add, like everyone else, I mean, I had 4 ASL teachers in the district and 2 teachers working on all that curriculum work. So it really is a labor of love. I know we've all given a shout out to our teachers, but we couldn't do it without them. And we do have excellent staff who really care and take this work very seriously about putting out a great product and producing great citizens. So it's an honor to work with them and you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so that motion is to postpone approval of the World Languages, American Sign Language 1 through 3, and Heritage Spanish 1 courses curriculum as presented until the February 1st, 2024 board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes. Next item is the proposed agenda for the February 1st board meeting, which will be back here at Rockwood Summit. And the final item is future agenda presentations and events to attend. Check your Google Calendar. And just a reminder to the board to check your email. We've all got a little bit of homework between now and our next meeting. So make sure that you get that over to Janet the Goat Sadowski ASAP if you can. Thank you all. And with that, good night.